Good afternoon, welcome to the Seymour Parish Council Committee meeting of Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025 at 4:30 in the Cal meeting room of Seymour Parish Government Annex Building. Please silence all cell phones, remove all hats. Public may comment upon any item which requires a vote by Seymour Parish Council. We ask that you fill out a request to speak form located in the back of the room. Once completed, you bring it to the sheriff deputy and he'll give it to me. I would like to call the Public Works Committee meeting to order with a prayer led by Council Person Ms. Brooke Mitchell.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today, asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Amen.
Amen. Sport, will you lead us in the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, everyone's here, that was someone's excuse.
Item 1, Brad Sowers, inland fisheries biologist of the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, to give a presentation on the Henderson Lake drawdown.
Ms. Sandy? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. I appreciate your all's time. I'll try to go through this quickly to not obviously drag this out. My name is Brad Salyers. I'm in the Lafayette LDWF office. I'm a fisheries biologist. I've been the fisheries manager of Henderson Lake for about the last 13 years. And so I'm going to talk to the council today and the public about we're proposing to have another drawdown this year. And at the end of it, I'll be happy to take any questions. All right, so why do we want to continue to have these drawdowns? The biggest reason is we have a severe chronic aquatic plant problem on Henderson Lake. We have 3 major plants: hydrilla, water hyacinth, and giant salvinia. Hydrilla is a submerged aquatic that can grow in a few inches of water up to 25 feet deep. The 2 pictures that you see up there, the one on the left is a picture from about 2015, 2014, where you can see where a boat went through there. When a propeller cuts those plants up, every little piece that gets cut is now a viable plant that can go float off somewhere else and start another colony, basically. It has 4 methods of reproduction. It's exceptionally good at what it does. It's just growing in slow, nutrient-rich water, and that's exactly what Henderson is. The picture on the right is, that's a type map picture we did from 2014. That shows the hydrilla infestation. So the lake, when we're at 9 feet, when the water is level with the control structure, that's what we call pool stage. It's 5,000 acres at that point. That picture you see with the green, that's 2,500 acres of infestation. So 50% of the lake was covered just as recently as 2014. The next problematic plant, which is one of the top worst invasive species in the world, water hyacinth. That's the one a lot of people refer to as lilies. Has beautiful purple flowers. It was brought over here in like 1884 at the Cotton Expo in New Orleans. Named now as the World's Fair. Back then it was the Cotton Expo. Brought it over, it escaped cultivation, and it has run rampant ever since. We spend a tremendous amount of money. All the southeastern states as a whole spend a tremendous amount of money trying to battle that plant. Historically, we used to treat 3,400 acres. So remember, I'm saying it's a 5,000 acre lake at pool stage. We would every year treat 3,400 acres of water hyacinth in that lake. I no longer have a dedicated spray crew on that lake. We've downsized our aquatic plant program. We have to do contracts now. So we hire Dotrieve, we hire other contractors to come in and spray that for us because it was a financial decision that was made at our Baton Rouge office of downsizing staff and benefits and things like that. The thing about water hyacinth is extremely rapid growth. If you ever run a smaller outboard and you hit a big mat of that, you know it can almost stop you in your tracks. Those mats can get absolutely massive. They block out all the sunlight. Therefore, it blocks out the photosynthesis. That stops the plankton from growing. That stops oxygen production. So it has a very negative effect from a biological perspective, also from a transportation, boating perspective. And it's just, it grows unbelievably fast. It can double its biomass in about 12 days. 1 healthy acre of water hyacinth weighs about 200 tons. So you look at it and say, why don't y'all just remove it? Just come in there with some kind of lifter and lift it all out. It's so heavy water weight that it's just not feasible. You know, it's so incredibly dense with water that it's not realistic to haul it out of there. And then the most recent problematic plant we have is giant salvinia. That one was first observed in the fall of 2012, and it has never looked back since. Coverage expands each year and goes back a little bit. Pretty much we always see an explosion in the spring. Because the river comes up, the Chaffly River comes up, we have water coming in from Catawba. Usually we're at a pretty high water stage at around January, February, March. If we don't get a heavy winter, it is going to just blow up in those backwoods. Up there around Fort Doge and Lost Lake and those areas, it will completely fill the backwoods. And then when the water does start draining, it all comes out of the woods and we have a serious problem. The boat ramps people can't hardly get out, the public ramp is covered. So if we wait too long on those type of plants, it's a nightmare. That one is a floating fern from South America, and it can actually double its biomass in about 7 to 10 days. So you think about if you have 10 acres of that plant and you're trying to manage it, in 7 to 10 days you now have 20 acres. 7 to 10 more days you have 40 acres. That's a management nightmare. Not to mention how expensive herbicide is. So I'll get back on to why these drawdowns are so beneficial to these aquatic plants in just a second. All right, so we utilize an integrated approach to managing aquatic vegetation. This approach includes biological control, mechanical control, and chemical control. No one of those by itself will necessarily eradicate a plant, or it won't even necessarily have good management of that plant. So we try to utilize all three to really manage these plants as best we can. When I say biological control, I mean we use biological agents. And in that case, grass carp. We've stocked a bunch of grass carp to try to reduce the hydrilla. The little picture you see over on the side of the grass carp is a giant salvinia weevil. That's a weevil that only feeds on the giant salvinia plant. It burrows down in and it lays its eggs, and it's hatched, the little ones come out and just keep reproducing, and they will severely damage the plant. The mechanical control aspect, that's drawdowns. Mechanical being the control structure. And again, I'll explain more of these as we go. And chemical control, chemical just meaning the herbicides. Again, they're EPA approved herbicides that are approved strictly for aquatic use. So that's all we ever use is herbicides that are specifically approved for aquatic use. Okay, biological control. Here's kind of what we've done in the last 10 plus years to try to get control of this stuff. We stocked a total of 52, almost 53,000 grass carp over a 5-year period. Most of those are down by Kearns, and then some were at McGee's and Whiskey Bay. All that area down there, because the picture you saw a minute ago, historically, the flats, north and south of I-10, that's where the hydrilla has always been the worst. So that's where we try to release those fish in order to really combat that hydrilla down there. And then the giant salvinia weevils. You can see the different years up there in the numbers that we've released. The total is basically up almost 300,000 weevils over a 13-year span. We did put more in this year, but we haven't been able to do a count on it yet. You have to do an estimate because you're dumping weevils that are in plant material, so you have to come back later and do an estimate count, so we haven't quite got to that yet. We probably will have to stock more grass carp, and we will definitely be stocking more giant salvinia weevils. It's just it's maintenance, it's management. So these numbers will just continue to increase as time goes on because that's the only way to keep ahead of these plants is to try to just keep utilizing this integrated approach. Oh wow, that's impossible. Really sorry, that was a little bigger on my computer at the office. This is the history of the drawdowns that we've had. We've been trying these since the fall of '96, basically. Many years were not attempted. No action was taken due to a lack of public support, and the biggest reason was it was impacting the swamp core business. We at LWF do not want to stifle anyone's economic ability to generate income. So if our management decisions are going to directly impact someone's ability to make money, we have to reconsider. And so that was the reason why no action was taken for quite a few years. In 2012, winter of 12 and 13, we got some money through the Chaffly Basin program and DNR, and we dredged out the boulevard and those private ramps along the boulevard there to where they would still be able to conduct their swamp core business even if we had a drawdown. And so from that point, we had the approval of the business owners and public, saw what we were trying to do. And then we finally got a permit from the Army Corps in 2014, and that was the best year we've had in the last 10 years. We had a really good year, 2014. Environmental factors all played into effect, and the hydrilla has never been the same since then. I'm not going to say that, but we really got a good control of the lake in 2014, and now we're just trying our best to stay on top of that. That graph, again, that's kind of hard to tell, but the upper value on that is 20 feet of water. The lower value is 5 feet of water. So you can see what drastic water fluctuations we're talking about in Henderson Lake. When you get down to almost the 5 feet, the lower value, that's our drawdowns. So when we almost get like 6 feet is how far we would normally try to draw down to. And then as we get huge rains in the spring and the Chapelizod River comes up, we get to almost 20 feet in the spring times. But basically just a summary of the drawdown attempts. We did one in 14, that was the really good one. 15, 17, and 19, we were unable to attempt them at all due to either mechanical issues with the structure or water was just too high. 2019, so you remember how high the river was basically that entire year. And then the rest of those years, 16, 18, 20 through 24, we had partial success. So in some of those cases, like 2016 is a good example of, we started drawing the lake down, we got to about 8 feet, and then the flood of 2016 did in August. It went from 8 feet to 15 feet in less than a week. And so we lost a huge window of time there in order to get the lake back down. And when we finally did, we got a good drying period, but it obviously was abbreviated in that fact. The Dixie Pipeline, a couple years ago, the Dixie Pipeline needed, there was a project on it, and they actually ruptured the pipeline when they were in there working, and so that was a huge delay. So the point of that slide is just to say, we've been trying this since about 1996. A lot of years we couldn't get any, we didn't have the support. Now that we have the support, it's still a lot of environmental factors at play, and it doesn't mean you're gonna have a successful drawdown just because we try. And so we just have to try the best we can, basically, and hope for the right environmental conditions. Okay, the chemical control. This is again, it's hard to read, I apologize. This is a quick summary of how much we have sprayed over about the last 15 years, actually about the last 11 or 12 years. Just this year alone in Henderson, we've spent almost $150,000. I'd say we're probably at that point already. The giant salvinia and the water hyacinth has gotten really bad, and so we've had several crews in there and spraying all around I-10 and the private boat ramps, and just trying to keep everything open for basically the fishermen, for the crawfishermen, for the oil and gas, the little bit of oil and gas exploration that's in there, and then the swamp tours and boaters. That's basically one of our missions that we're charged with, is keeping waterways open. Without further drawdowns, multiple contracts will continue to be needed. And so you can see at $150,000 just already this year, that was just in June and July. It can get very, very expensive trying to control these plants. This is a picture of water hyacinth on the I-10 bridge span. That this was one of my spray crews a few years ago. That's how thick those mats get. They will completely choke up the waterway. At that point, sunlight's coming through. It's detrimental to the fish population. It's detrimental to the just the biological health of the lake as a whole. And it's almost impossible to drive, like I said earlier, a little 25 horse or 40 horse, it just stops you. It just stops you in the tracks. But the discussion of this is the plants basically grow faster than what we can manage them, which necessitates the use of those multiple control methods, or the integrated approach, as I mentioned before. The abundance of kind of backwater habitat, the cypress, tupelo, the buttonbush, the understory plants that you have there, it's a lot of habitat that's inaccessible to boat-mounted spray rigs. And so when the Chapelizod River gets very high, like it does most of the years, and many years up to 9 months out of the year, there's just a lot of nursery habitat. Those plants just sit and they grow and they grow. Again, multiple contracts are going to be needed annually, and that just will continually restrict the boating, fishing, and hunting access. Because obviously the duck hunters are in the same problem when they're trying to get a boat out there to put their blind, and they're faced with a scenario like that right there. So our recommendation is to conduct a drawdown. Basically, the lake level, when we reach that pool stage, when the water gets to 9 feet, that's where the water is even with the water control structure, 9 feet. So we would want to drop from 9 feet down to 6 feet at a rate of 2 to 4 inches per day, ideally 3 inches. And that normally takes about 2 weeks' time. The reason we go slow like that is because the summer is the hottest months. That means the dissolved oxygen that is available in the water is at its lowest point that it's going to be all year. So you have to go slow because you draw down real fast and you end up getting a fish kill. So that's the last thing we want to do is create a fish kill by drawing it down too fast. The time frame that we look at is August 1st to November 1st. It's always kind of been the mindset that we don't want to mess with 4th of July. We know that's a great holiday. And normally you can't even attempt it then because the river, this year's a perfect example. The river still just came under 10 some feet. So we wouldn't even be able to start drawdown yet if we wanted to. We might be at 9 feet by August 1st. It's going to be close. But so a lot of years that's not even possible. So that's our best window of opportunity is August 1st to November 1st. And then you saw the slide up there before. A lot of years just don't work. The water's just too hot for too long. Or we get huge rainfall events and it doesn't work. The goals of the drawdown is destroy the existing plants by stranding the hyacinth and salvia. Whenever we pull the water down, a lot of those plants get hung up in the buttonbush, get hung up in the privet, the swamp privet. A lot of them will just kind of hang on the edges of the banks. Those aquatic plants will root down really, really heavily in that soil. And basically you almost can't even pull them up. And so then when the water does come back up in the spring or the late winter, whenever, those plants just basically drown. And so because they have to have sunlight in order for photosynthesis, for reproduction. So once they're covered with water and they're rooted down, they effectively die and drown. So that's what I mean by stranding the hyacinth and the salvia. It exposes the hydrilla roots. Like you can see in this picture, that's that long canal that's along the bottom of the picture. That's the boulevard that's down by McGee's and Basin Landing and Kearns would be to the left. So that's the north and south flats. You can just see I-10 in that picture kind of around the top. But when that flat dries out like that, as it keeps setting in the sun, the ground starts cracking. And when it cracks open, it exposes those hydrilla roots. They're like carrots. When those carrots, for lack of a better word, tubers is what they're called. When those things are exposed to sunlight, to wind, it stresses them. It very, very much stresses them. It kills all the emergent plant, and it stresses the roots. And if you can keep doing that for consistent years, literature suggests you can kill the plant. But you have to have successful drawdowns for an estimation of like 3 to 5 years. And we just don't get successful drawdowns that often. And then also it enhances the fisheries habitat. The compaction of the soil is a tremendously important thing. So not only does the ground crack, but all that mud and that just, if you've ever been in some of that shallow part of the lake or just in the basin, shallow, down the marshes, whatever, you jump off down in the water and you sink like 3 feet deep in the mud almost. That's basically what the bottom of the lake is like. But when we can get it to a point like that where it's actually drying, that mud will dry from 2 feet deep down to less than like 6 inches. It compacts, and all what was inorganic material that's in that mud now becomes organic because it has oxygen available to it, and it decomposes. And then those nutrients are available to the fish and the plankton and different animals that next spring. Additional benefits, like I said, it enhances the fisheries habitat by drying and compacting their organic matter. When you get a good firm substrate instead of that loose mud, that's very good spawning habitat. When fish go to lay their eggs in just loose, muddy soil, those eggs can sink. If they sink and they smother, they can't get fresh water circulating around the eggs, they will suffocate and they die. And so if the fish have a good firm substrate to lay their eggs, the brim, the sockeye, whatever, have good firm substrate, and a bass would make cavity nests as well. That good firm bottom, the fish can sit there and tend to those nests, and they have a much higher success rate of recruitment with a firmer, hard substrate. Improved spawning success, as I mentioned, improved ability of forage for the predatory fishes like our sac-lay and our bass. When the water does come down, it concentrates all those fish with the shad, so they eat real well, they get a good body condition, they go into the next spring with a good, healthy body condition. And then it increases the nutrients, like I said, for plankton growth and for plant growth the next spring. And it just mimics the natural historical swamp flow regime where it floods in the spring and it dries out in the fall. So, and then I should also mention that Mr. Pete and I, in speaking, the water control structure needs some work on it, and needs some work done on it. And so another benefit to having the drawdown right now would be to, when the water's too high, it's too dangerous to get in and work on the structure. When you lower it to 6 feet, it takes a lot of those unknown variables out of there, and it's a much safer environment for the divers to get down and work on that structure with those hydraulic pistons and things like that. Okay. That's pretty much all I have. There's my contact information. I have some business cards. If anybody would like to contact me later, I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any questions.
Any questions or comments? Rob, I got a couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
And questions too. So, like right now, they're passing water from north of the tower. So when the Dixie pipeline projects, when they open up those cuts and gaps and all, it did benefit, because we're catching more fish in Henderson right now than we ever caught before.
That's awesome.
We're catching a lot of small fish. Why haven't they looked at putting restrictions on the fish in the size limit and account in Henderson Lake? Is that ever going to be something to think about?
It's been discussed. Basically, the regulations that were put in place were statewide regulations for both bass and crappie, and our department feels like those are, even though it seems excessive, when you say 50 sac-a-lay, 90% of people don't go out there and catch 50 sac-a-lay. Like most people are gonna go catch 10, maybe 15 if you've had a pretty good day. So, there has been some discussion with size limits, there has been some discussion of changing the possession limits, like from 50 to 25. We're still trying to get a feel on that as far as what the majority of people want. Basically, we don't wanna punish one user group to try to appease some other user group. But I do understand your concern, Mr. Chris, and
It just seems like right now would be the time to do it, because right now the fish, they bite. If you go out there and get in a boat and open ice chest, and kind of survey, every good time to survey your fish, see the size, maybe see what the catch is and everything. I don't think people are catching more than 50 fish, that's not the problem. The problem is they're catching a little bit of fish and taking next year's fish out.
if they're keeping smaller fish, that's kind
A lot
of
of
a waste
small fish,
on
yeah.
their end, because how much meat are you gonna get off a 4-inch sac-a-lay? But there is a possession limit, and if they catch more than that limit, then they're breaking the law. Our enforcement agents are out there, checking boats and writing tickets, and then me and my staff actually go out there and do creel surveys. The last time we were out there was 23, and we're scheduled to do another one in 27. So we'll be out there, weighing and measuring fish, as people come off the boat ramp. And we don't have enforcement capabilities, but we,
Right.
if you see somebody that's coming out there with 100 sac-a-lay, I'm probably gonna write down your check.
And our fish, our fish Henderson all the time, and that's the biggest complaint from the locals that fish and all those people coming in and taking a lot of the little fish out. Another thing too, when they started passing water a few weeks, last week they started passing water from the top.
Yes, sir.
So we didn't have, the lilies weren't bad at all in Henderson up till about a few months ago. But the reason the lilies are so bad right now is we had a lot of lilies that were trapped between the high power line and the tower.
Okay.
So once they open those gates and they start, and we don't pass water that often through it, but when we do pass it, I notice every time we pass the water, when you can go right to the Dixie pipeline and beyond, and on the North Fort Dosh, way up there, you'll see them coming in. Those lilies are moving from there. You don't think we could focus more on a spray program above Fort Dosh and get those lilies? Because the lilies that we get in the lake right now, that's all coming from up there. That's all coming in from the top.
Sure, that's something we can look at. My aquatic plant counterpart, Mr. Daniel Hill, is here, so I'm sure he just heard that suggestion as well. Yeah, that's a great idea. We can launch the Catawba and go down the agreement and see if we can find somewhere that we can, where the plants are concentrated.
And then you're always gonna have laws about you in those areas where it's trapped inside and it's not gonna get out there, the water gets high enough.
Yes, sir.
And all that, but once you get a small pool in the lake, once that you start getting water, that water moves pretty quick, and like right now, I noticed that like in the Phillips about 2 weeks ago, the water was black, like it was real ugly, the water, it didn't have any oxygen in it. But since they started passing the water, it got better, but it brought all the lilies are coming through. But on the giant Albania, we have a big problem, that's the biggest issue right now. Well, we don't have much hydrilla left in the lake.
No, there's not a lot of hydrilla. Basically, each year when we do the drawdown, I see it along the Dixie. I see it in a few places. It's always down by Basin Landing in a few places, but it's nothing like it was.
No, it's not even close.
It's nothing like it was. And to be honest with you, I'd like to keep it that way. I know some of the bass fishermen do like patches of it, but it's so incredibly hard to just keep a little bit of it. A little bit can turn into a lot, very, very quickly. And so that was the reason why we kind of went heavy on the stocking the grass carp for a few years, was just to try to get it to a point where it's manageable now. And I do see it every year, but like you said, it's sparse.
Any questions? Mr. Alexander?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But I have a question for information, but it's not related to your presentation.
Okay.
I know your office on Dollar Drive,
Yes, sir.
and at this office there, what information, do you have an open door policy or something?
Yes, sir.
What information do you provide the public if they were just to come into?
Oh, absolutely. Our office is open from 8 to 4:30. And we have a information section when you first come in, hunting regulations, fishing regulations, maps of WMAs, all kinds of other literature pamphlets on different activities that our department offers. And then if there's somebody in the department, if there's someone in particular you'd like to talk to, I'd like to talk to somebody in the alligator program. You can ask at the front desk and say, may I speak to an alligator biologist? Or in my case, I'd like to talk to someone about Henderson Lake, a fisheries biologist. And one of our staff can come down and speak with you, and if we can't, obviously get your concerns addressed, we'll take your name and number and be able to try to send you some information, email or mail you some stuff. Other programs, I can't really speak for wildlife. I'm in the Office of Fisheries, but we do offer a lot of wildlife programs, like a landowner assistance thing. If you own 15, 20 acres and you want to manage for quail, bobwhite quail, you can come speak with one of our private lands biologists, and they can help write you a prescription for your land to say, if we do this and this and this, and we burn on this rotation, this year burn, the next 2 years burn this. I'm just kind of making a fictitious standard, but they can write you a prescription to help you manage your land, to try to manage it for the species that you like, whether it be rabbit, squirrel, deer, bobwhite quail, or wild turkey. Obviously turkey's not a big thing down here too much, but as you get north, a lot of people like to really manage their land for turkeys. Trying to think of anything else. There's quite a few things that our department offers, so I would welcome you to come by there and stop in sometime and see us, and I'll be happy to give you the nickels over and show you what services we offer, and if it's something that you'd be interested in, we'll get you set up.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
All right, thank you for coming and giving your presentation.
I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just want to add, I had a meeting earlier this morning at Uval and Associates on the control structure. They're in the process, they've come up with a 3-phase process or project. They're hoping to get it into the advertisement, into the test news by next week, to be able to solicit for bids. We're hoping to get this thing all wrapped up to where if the environment is available, we can do some work on that control structure. I know the council approved the movement of the ordinance to give us availability of that donation money. So anyway, just want to let you know we are in the process. I did sit down with Hugh and Associates, and we're hoping within the next 2 weeks to get that. I think within 3 weeks, possibly go out to bid and then see if we can, Mother Nature agrees, and we can get in there and do the first phase of this, of the control structure. Thank you.
Discussion of ordinance summary number 15110R, an ordinance reducing the extent of servitude rights within the parish government from 100 feet to 50 feet on the northwestern side of the drainage channel designated as M48, where it borders parcel number 09202C2553.
Mr. Castillo?
Yeah, Mr. Sonia told me he has a lateral that runs north side of his house. He wants to reduce it from 100 to 50 foot. He can build his house. We went, we measured everything. We have plenty of room on both sides to still manage that channel.
Okay. Any questions?
Consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing Parish President Pete Delcom to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Grow Bridge for the East Drive project.
I have been in contact with Mayor Colley. This is a project within the city of Breaux Bridge. However, the lateral, the 38-113, which is a designated parish lateral, goes into the city. There were some problems of which our normal protocol is, whether it be a resident or whether it be a municipality. If you buy the material, we will then go in and take care of putting in culverts and such. And this was the agreement that we have done with Breaux Bridge. So, that being said, once this is done, with the approval, we will be entering into this contract with the city of Breaux Bridge to do this intergovernmental agreement.
Consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing Parish President Pete Delcom to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Grow Bridge for the Bell Terra tree removal project.
Another project in which I think is good, both for the parish and for the municipality, showing a little continuity between units of government. There is a tree that is within the lateral, actually leaning over into a yard, but more importantly, it's in that lateral itself. It's going to start giving us drainage problems. So again, another intergovernmental agreement with the city of Breaux Bridge, in which we'll go in and we'll take care of that issue.
Consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing Parish President Pete Delcom to enter into a master service agreement with E3 Environmental Services.
About a month ago, we had an issue on the Bayou Teche at the Parks boat landing. People woke up, there was an oil slick at that landing. Different individuals were called, EPA, different environmental agencies with the government, and also the E3 Environmental Services, in which they came in, cleaned everything up. And I know the individuals involved, a couple of them from Catabula, and they said, look, this is what we do. If y'all would want us to come in, it would be advisable if we could do a master service agreement, to where in the event that something occurs, normally it's going to be an emergency situation. And at that point in time, this is not the time to start looking for people to come in and do these emergency services. These people are available, they're bonded, they're insured, they've been around for a very long time, they're local. So I thought it would behoove the parish if we can go into a master service agreement, to where if the emergency should arise, it's just a matter of picking up the phone call and calling these guys to come in and take care of the problem.
I want to make just a comment about this. I think this is long past overdue. We should have been doing this years ago. We have situations with farmers, we have situations with gas stations, we have situations all through the parish where 10, 15, 20 years ago, we used to just dump it on the side of the road and kill the grass in the ditches and stuff, and it was no big deal, but this stuff's all going into our water systems. This company is local. It's my understanding that they're getting ready to move their business off of the Breaux Bridge Highway, I think is where they're gonna be located. We should have been doing this for a long time. I encourage every council member to seriously consider supporting this project, because it's a good thing for our parish, a good thing for the environment, and these people right here will keep us out of trouble. We don't need to get in any kind of trouble like this. You know, it's a good thing. The situation that Mr. Delcom was discussing, I think the discussion is the all that was spilled over there or dumped over there, the parks moved out and stuff. And I mean, at one time, we wouldn't have took it into consideration, but it's a major issue. So I'm glad to see us moving on this. Any other questions?
Parish President Pete Delcom to discuss the request of Safe Source Incorporated to grant unto St. Martin Parish Government a 10-foot sewer servitude on the property owned by Safe Source Incorporated, located on Lake Talon Road, Broussard, Louisiana, 70518.
Mr. Delcom?
I think Mr. Lee may be able to explain it a little better than me.
Yeah, this week, spoke with a representative from Safe Source Inc. Basically, a neighboring property in the area has asked for this 10-foot servitude. It's actually be 10 foot in St. Martin Parish, 10 foot in the city of Broussard, I'm sorry. And basically, Safe Source says, we don't have a problem with it. We don't want to give a sewer servitude to a person. We'd rather give it to the government entities. That way, if the sewer servitude needs to be used, they have to come, apply for permits, make sure everything's in order with us before anything can happen. So they're just holding up the end of a deal they made with one of their neighbors. So they're asking to give us a 10-foot sewer servitude, 10 foot to the city of Broussard. There's no plans for it to be used right now, but it's available, and if a owner or resident needs it, they have to come to parish government or the city of Broussard for the permitting and stuff like that. So that's the gist of it.
Questions? Commissioner Baptiste?
Is that, Tara, where at would that servitude be on the property? Is it,
It's I have the flag, but it's Lake Tyler Road, it's the property behind Lake Tyler Road. There's actually no road that runs in between it, it's just a bunch of plots that back up to each other. And it's in like a wooded area.
so what are we doing if I'm looking at the new road construction that's coming out on 182, it's gonna be to the right of the roadway?
I have to share the flag with you, it's lot 12 on the flat data, flat render, where the servitude is gonna be. We have to share that with the council, but it's the property behind Lake Tyler Road. Safe Source borders Lake Tyler Road, and they own the property behind it, so it's a separate parcel of land.
It's where they were looking to, that subdivision, they were looking to subdivide and so forth. And the city of Broussard, the question was again raised, getting water to this new subdivision. City of Broussard was pretty much not in favor of extending at this point in time due to other local, problems that they feel. So this thing here, it's in an undeveloped area in back of where Broussard adjoins with St. Martin Parish, and this property is to the north of the Safe Source property. It is just a servitude in which, in the event anything would want, if they want to do anything with it, they gotta come here and they gotta ask permission. And they have to do the same thing with Broussard, each independently. So basically, our hands aren't tied to anything.
Yeah, I'd like to get a copy of the map, because it just seems like if we're doing this, there may be some plans, and so I just wanna make sure that everything's gonna open up the potential future development.
I'll send it to the clerk, I'll get it to the clerk and she'll put it on.
Thank you.
Questions from council members on parish issues?
District 1? District 2? Good. District 3?
Yes. I have a couple of questions or concerns. One is, I guess I'll see this as just a little homework that I would like to do for my fellow council members, is because I've been looking at and have requested a couple of, to see if we had any type of ordinances, and that's in regards to permit and zoning for landowners. And the way it seems like the parish has described for years is landowners and operators. So in my understanding, landowners, either you own the land and operator, you're operating on it. But in regards to permit and zoning, when it's an operator, and obviously the land is not owned, I haven't found anything, and I've asked for help, assistance, and it doesn't seem like the council has ever put an ordinance in black and white to be followed by either landowner or operator of land, whether occupying for residential or commercial. So, I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. You know, if I missed some council members, as in like Chris or Mr. Benson or even Carla, who's been on the council and maybe I overlooked something. if y'all can do some homework, if there's something that needs to be brought in, I can be aware of. Cause I see that we kind of running into a problem, especially when, constituents call and it's just a different report when it's time for permanent zoning in regards to, occupying that land. So, and I've just showed it to me in black and white, and that's what we're gonna follow. And it's just never, we don't have it in black and white.
Are you pertaining like variances or?
No, it's not really a variance, it's mostly, I've ran into like occupying a property, you don't own it, the owner said you can. Some people, it's like you can get a plot, and you can have a written statement in your eyes and permit and whatever, and then it's, well, you have to have it divided, and then, so we just need to know what it is. You know, we need to know what it is, because I do believe, you know, I know there's some legality to it, but I do believe that in the future, that would help us, and that would help Public Works with these nuisance properties and these abandoned properties, you know. And not everybody is gonna do a succession, not everybody can afford a succession, but, a notarized letter, you know, agreement, some type of agreement can make things happen. And there's many times we can't find all 10 people that own the land, and none of them are gonna ever do a succession if you even find them. So we're paying legal fees, we have to pay our attorney to do the research. It still doesn't get, the job still doesn't get done. We just keep moving in circles, and we still have these abandoned properties. We still have the same things that come up. So I think legally, we can work to find a way that we can get these properties occupied, you know, if the goal.
So I think what you're talking about, Tammy, I understand because we missed, I can count on one hand in the time I've been here, how many we've done, just because of the cost and the process it takes so long. So that we do adjudication project, process, and that pretty much, that puts us back in commerce because it allows us to take over the property and sell it. It's a long, drawn out process. I think maybe it's something that we can maybe touch on, or maybe it's something we can look into.
Yeah,
or we
so-
see there's something to speed it up.
We do have some adjudications that y'all may actually see in the, for publication on the next committee meeting. Maybe, I hope, that's my hope at least. I know we're talking about like, just trying to get people on property, not necessarily moving the change of title. Planning and zoning, from my understanding, they just require proof of any interest of ownership. If it's your mom and dad's property and they're dead, bring me a death certificate, you know, show me that's your parents, and they'll let permits issue and things of that nature. If 20 people own a piece of property in Louisiana, one person can exercise that property, even if the other 19 don't want you to.
That's what I thought.
And their remedy is a partition by licitation or in kind, with the court system. So you have a 0.1% interest, we'll issue an electrical permit, sewer, well, that's with the Department of Health, but it doesn't matter if you're not the full owner. A lease, death certificate, a will, even if it's not been fully done through the court yet, it's actually sort of a lax system, I think. And just sometimes the documents they bring just isn't up to standard, that's all I guess.
And thank you. So exactly what we said, I do believe that we as council members, we need to have that in the ordinance and have that in writing. Because the understanding for every individual could be totally different, but if we have it in writing, it can be implemented, and hopefully implemented the same way for every situation.
Could we do something in an ordinance, or do we have a state statute that we follow on that deal?
I think with permitting, like I said, you come in and you say I'm an owner and you can prove an interest in ownership, that's really all we require. I know really the only one I've ever been consulted on, it was a trust issue. It was a trust fund, there was 3 owners, 2 guardians, and that required a little bit of research, on what the trust said and what the law said. Other than that, it's really never been brought to me. It's give me a will, give me a lease, give me permission from the owner, make it over, something of that nature. We can look into it, we can discuss it more, just to see, but a lot of times it's just what do people bring in, what we consider a lease. You know, they brought a handwritten piece of paper, we don't know if it's notarized, we have a little more validity to it, it's things like that.
Ms. Alexander, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Mr. Delphine, on the agenda, item number 3,
Mr. Vincent, we ain't got that agenda item yet.
Well, I was gonna wait till you would come to me, but.
Oh, no, I just got a question about just something that just started. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's not a problem.
All right, Ms. Garcia.
All right, so good, thank y'all, but that's just the homework I had for the councils. All right, so another concern I have, and this is probably towards, parish president and public works, in regards to item 3 and item 4. So, just to, if the council will just bring up to speed. Probably way before me, and however, there's been flooding and draining situation in the Durant subdivision, that would be on the north end of town. I will say, when I came into office, a lot of the residents who has been in those subdivisions for 20 plus 30 years have experienced situations, flooding. And when the federal government came out with this, flood mitigation and this flood plan, and they sent a rep and they did a presentation and they saved these grants and however, and we hosted some classes here, we did have a couple of residents in that area that applied. Okay, so they were looking to assess the situation, but with administration changes and all that good stuff, that has now, that's waxed, that's out. Okay, so that's gone. Well, they still reside there. So we can't make it disappear, but I do believe that there's some things that we can do. And we had a meeting, I myself and a couple of parish presidents, a couple of us, with the city of St. Martinville, some officials from there, in regards to the Durant subdivision, and there's a situation with the canal. I didn't know, I did call Jason and he did give it, and he said that it's our canal. Well, what's being brought is, we need to get the canal clean. Residents have complained, this and that, the canal is full of trees and a mess. I have pictures, it's a mess. The city has some grant money, even disregarding all of this. What I'm saying is that, especially when I heard Parish President on 3 and 4 of a unity of government, I think that we need to do what we need to do as a parish, what we're responsible to do, and even in that area, or in any area, we need to work as a unity of government, because that subdivision has suffered drastically. I'm not saying we're gonna fix it 100%, but I think that we can provide some relief with technology and, workers. We won't take it away from the employees, but we can definitely provide some relief. So I just feel like 3 and 4, if we're doing an inter-agreement with the city of Brook Ridge, and it's within the city limits, then we have to do everything we can do to the full of our capacity in the Durant subdivision with the city of St. Martinville.
And we've had homes that's flooded in that subdivision before.
Multiple times, yes. And I myself, have had some altercations and go to FEMA. Well, there's no FEMA. So we need to do something, especially the canal is for us. And I'm not even school, but I went and I'm like, oh Lord, it's full of stuff. So I know that just water cannot pass, water not passing with them trees and whatever. So we need to do our part. We need to do our part.
You wanna comment and give us an update on the canal, where y'all at on this one?
Certainly. First of all, let's make sure that we clarify, there is an old Durant subdivision to the west of Main Street, Highway 31, of which none of that has any bearing with parish government. So the old subdivision, there is drainage problems, but that is basically a city problem that I really don't know what the answer is. So that being said, I would think that you're talking about the newer Durant subdivision, and I had sat down for the past year with the city, and they had X amount of dollars, X amount of federal dollars to take care of doing something with that drainage canal. Now, it's not a 38-113. It is not a mandated drainage canal that is for the parish. I also want to make that be known. And I did reach out to the city and say, okay, look, our policy as the same policy that I used with the city of Grow Ridge is, if you purchase the material, we will supply the labor and equipment to install this. Now, there was an engineering firm, McBay, that is actually doing the new water system, a portion of it. And they were supposed to do the due diligence and the engineering on this lateral. The city of St. Martinville did not know the intensity of what needed to be done for the parish to do their work. I went in and said, at the beginning, we will provide the labor and material to lay all of the material once it's purchased. It's probably what we had anticipated without looking, about a 2-week job. Now, I cannot, due to all of the 600 miles of laterals and ditches that the parish has to take care of, I cannot let out our labor and material, labor and equipment for longer than 2-week periods at a time. That being said, the engineering documents we received from McBade, I felt were vastly incomplete. And when I sent out our public work directors, Mr. Eddie, Darren Boban, to take a look at the project, it was a lot more involved than what had been described to us. And when I brought this back to the attention of the city of St. Martinville, I said, the same deal is on the table. If you take care of all of these other variables, we will be more than happy to come in, do an intergovernmental, and lay 1,500 foot of culvert in the city of St. Martinville. It would have involved taking out a number of trees, large trees, of which we do not have the ability, nor will I put the parish in the position of liability in taking out trees that could fall on a house. We normally would get a tree service to take care of that issue. And I told the city, it's not our responsibility. That tree is not impeding or impeding the flow of water. If y'all want us to come in and take care of it, you'll need to take care of taking out these larger trees. The smaller trees down by the bayou, by the Fremos, we could go in there. It would probably be another 1 to 2 week process. I said, I can take care of those, but I would have to split it up to where I would take out that portion that we can with our public works, and then come back probably the first or second quarter of next year and take care of the project once you have taken out the large oak trees that are in that variance. At that point in time, they said, we have the money to buy the material. We don't have the money to take out the trees. And I said, I don't think it's my position that I have to take out the trees. If you take out the trees, you're more than welcome to come in and do the entire project that had been agreed upon initially. Again, I don't think the engineering firm gave all of the specifications of that project when we sat down and came to a tentative agreement. And once the public works went out there and actually put eyes on the project, it was found that it was a lot more involved than had been anticipated. I did tell them there are a number of collapsed culverts in that lateral. That's the problem. The problem is the city or whoever put in culverts that were compromised. And at this point in time, they are collapsing. And that's a major reason for the backup of water. I did tell the city of St. Martinville, if you would like me to go in and take out that area of culvert that I feel is the problem, I can go in and take out that 200 foot of culvert and replace them with culverts that y'all purchased. I have no problem in doing that. So the project has changed from initial verbalization of a project, and even after the specs that were given to us by the engineering firm, and after our people put boots on the ground and took a look at what was actually going on. So I have no problem in doing the intergovernmental of St. Martinville, the city. However, I cannot put the parish at a liability in taking out trees that we do not have the ability to take out. If they want to take them out at their expense, I'm more than welcome to put in their culverts and complete the project.
So I have just one question that was asked to me and I couldn't answer it, and I said that they asked me to ask the parish president at the meeting. So being that the canal is deemed for the parish and there's trees in the canal, with or without the city, the parish is not gonna tend to that canal?
No, I didn't say that.
No, I'm asking.
The large live oak trees that are in that servitude, they're not blocking the water. And my position with the 600 miles of road, of laterals and canals that we take care of, if it's a mandated lateral or if it's a ditch in which we take care of, my main responsibility is to make sure that that canal, ditch, whatever, is functional. If that water is moving from point A to point B and flooding is not occurring due to anything in the ditch, if there's something in the ditch or the lateral that is impeding the water flow, I will take care of it. If I have to take out every tree that's in the servitude in this parish, it's an impossibility. The trees that we're talking about are humongous live oak trees that I do not have, nor does our public works have the ability to take out. You need a professional tree service to take them out. There are smaller trees down by the bayou, by Mr. Fremo's house. There's probably from Mr. Fremo's culvert to the bayou, which is about 500 feet, 300 feet. There's probably about a 25-foot drop to the bayou. There's some small 3-4 inch trees, chicken trees in there. With that type of angle, once that water gets to that point, these trees are not impeding or stopping the flow of that water. But I did tell them I would go in and take out those trees if that's what they wanted, because these trees are of a size that the parish public works could take care of. The enormity and length of this would probably be another 2-week project, and I have no problem in doing that. But again, I had to draw some lines as to what the parish is liable for, what we are mandated for, and what we can physically do. Now, if you want to find the money to cut trees out and do things for individuals when it comes to that point, or for the city of St. Martinville, because I'm telling you, if you start doing that, we're gonna open a can of worms. Because if you do it for one, whether it be a resident or whether it be a municipality, if it's not our mandated responsibility, you're opening a can of worms. You have to be able to draw a line somewhere. I never said I wouldn't do it. I just said that the city of St. Martinville has to take certain responsibilities for this individual project.
So with or without the city of St. Martinville, just considering the parish, we know definitely, and we have facts to show that those trees and what's in that canal now is not stopping the water from flowing. Like, we can say to those people and tell them, we have proof, we can show you that it's not stopping the flowing of water, and that's what they wanna know, because they're hearing that we're saying it's not, and they say they live there and they know that it is. So if we can show them like it's not, and that's why we're not moving the tree. But if we don't have that, then whether it's a tree, whatever it costs, I mean, the tree grew, it didn't start from a tree, it started from a branch, and we just didn't tend to it.
And this is, again, I'm gonna repeat, this is not a 38-113 in which we were mandated by the state.
Okay,
This was an agreement signed by, a previous past president. And just individuals, yeah, will take care of it. This is not a 38-113. This is not a mandated state level. Okay, so, that being said, we can take a look at it. As I said, there are trees in that drainage, but there's a 25-foot drop in 300 to 400 feet. That being said, that water's not staying in there, it's going down. The water that's being held up, there are a series of culverts that I believe are compromised, and that those culverts would be taken out, removed, and replaced at the elevation that needs to be, initiated, that would take care of a lot of the problem.
Mr. Young, I got a question and a comment. On the question, you see these large trees and all. Could that project be done within, even the trees there? Those large live oaks, do they have to be moved, or could they,
Well,
or would it affect the project?
the deal is that here's the drainage ditch, and here's the tree. Now, is it in the drainage ditch itself? No, it's not. Is it right on the side of it? Yes, it is. Is it in this person's yard? Yes, it is. Now, we're coming back to the same issue. Servitudes are drawn up on paper. You got a 15-foot, and this is the way it was drawn up. 15-foot servitude on either side of that drainage ditch. Now, how am I gonna get an excavator into a servitude of 15 feet in someone's yard? Impossible. I could use the 15-foot servitude on one side, and that is the unoccupied side. However, a lot of the trees are on both sides, and some in the residents' yards, of which I don't have the accessibility. It's some of the same issues that I have in the city of Breaux Bridge. Y'all want me to come in here and take care of this? I got fences all the way down this, y'all built in this servitude. I have the legal right to take this out so that I can take care of that drainage ditch. Y'all should have, when you purchase the property, be made aware of that there is a drainage servitude of X, and that if you build within this servitude, you're taking the responsibility and liability to where, in the event we have to come in to service this drainage servitude, we have the right to come in and take care of it. And that's the issue. It's not a problem out in the country. But when we start coming into these municipalities with all these yards, and we have major problems because they're not aware of the servitudes. And in this case here, this isn't a 38-113 with 100 foot of servitude on either side. This is a preconceived and made up agreement in which a 15-foot servitude on either side was given. There are major complications to do a project such as this.
I have the same issue in my district, in the rural area, the Parish, place, where we can't get behind the houses to do it. That's a parish, that's no city at all. And what happened was these people built onto the servitudes, built metal buildings, outdoor kitchens. Some of them built their homes, built on within this thing, and you just can't get behind it to do it. So that project, we sent that about 6 years ago, saying we were going over there, and we still haven't showed up. Because we can't figure out how to get a digger. My question was just, I was wondering if that project could have been done, because I'm gonna tell you, E-Hall, which is supervisor now, E-Hall dug a cooling in my district, that's probably the biggest and widest and deepest school we have, behind the Rich High School area. He had to actually cut a shelf to build it, get down there to dig it full, and there were some big trees, like what you're talking about, and some of them white oaks, big oaks, and he always able to just move around and get it done, you know, and all, and he's pretty good. We got some really good operators, we got some guys that can do that kind of work. I was just wondering if it could be done. Just something else I wanted to kind of just touch on, that this is basically an opinion, and this opinion came from my very first parish president I served with, with Guy Cormier. And we had a situation in Woodbridge with Brick Lake, and they did not get equipment to do it. We do work in Henson all the time, we do work for Village of Parks and all. And I asked Guy, we had a canal, it wasn't a L3 canal, it wasn't a designated, but it was a major drainage for our roadside ditches that drain through. And I asked Mr. Cormier, I said, can we as the parish? And he says, absolutely. He said, let me tell you something. We have a parish-wide drainage village that's not collected only in the rural parts of the parish, collected parish-wide. So he said, when we can assist our towns and our villages and our cities, he said, I think absolutely we should. And we did it with the past parish residents and all, we've always tried to help and assist and all that. I know people keep using the word functional, and I agree with you. We don't have the equipment in that part, we take everyone that needs to be done. But at some point in time, we start looking at some of these canals, that's preventative maintenance, because we have willow trees. I can tell you, I was here in 16, just down on the council. I was here in 18, when we caught that same flood, and these little willow trees, and they look like they were very much, when that trash bags and those tarps and these, everything that's in them drainage, they just started moving and got into those canals and blocked up, we flooded quite a few homes. And the same area that flooded in 16 flooded in 18. Some didn't flood in 16, some flooded in 18. We had more rain in 16. When the debris starts flowing, when the grass clippings and everything else that we talk about, and all the branches that fall in there and just pile up, doesn't look like it very much, but it is. So I think, I understand about how it's functional, but there's always that chance of preventive maintenance. We can keep it more functional and make sure that we don't have these problems at all.
I would maybe suggest, Ms. Narcisse, we've called the mayor and so forth to go out there so that we can all go out there and do an on-site, so where everyone can see. I'm here speaking behind a desk, but everyone go out there with our public works and we can describe physically what we're talking about, to where I think it would give a little bit more understanding to what's going on with this project. Again, when we went in, the agreement was X, and I don't think the engineering firm, I think they Google Earthed it and put some things on paper. They did not go out and give in their presentation to the city of St. Martinville, nor to the parish, what is actually entailed out there to do this project. When you do a project and you bring it to the contractors to get bid out, this project should be to an in-depth degree on this paper, on this project requirement, to where these people bidding this project out know exactly what they're bidding. There's no questions as to the contract that's gonna be signed. This was not done with this. What was given to the parish was not in that form. And they had a ditch, they had elevations, and that's all they had. They had nothing about trees, they had nothing about appendages, they had nothing about getting machinery in and out. I think it was vague in that sense, and therefore, when we finally got those documents and went out there and did an on-site, it brought a lot to our attention. Now, there again, I can't, with the volume of work that we have in public works to keep the rest of the parish moving, I can't put them on a project for more than 2 weeks at a time in that manner. And I did say that I would split it up. I could do down by the bayou for 2 weeks this year, and then next year, first or second quarter, they said they had no problem in holding on to the federal money that was being granted. I said, well, look, that would be perfect. If we can do this, we'll take care of that, and then next year we can do this and come in and take care of the entirety. Trees are still an issue. You start taking out 20 large trees, I mean, it's a big ticket item, at let's say $2,000, $3,000 a tree. I mean, you have $60,000, $80,000 to spend on these trees. I mean, it's a council decision, if you don't want to, but again, be forewarned, it could come back, we're gonna be doing a lot more of this in the future if that occurs.
You know, my teacher, a question?
No, just a comment. And it's been one of the suggestions for Ms. Narcisse. One of the things that, I've had going on in my district, which different concerns, and just recently, Mr. Castle and myself visited with Brookwood, Estate subdivision, and they had quite a bit of concerns about different aspects in their area. And just being able to meet with the people, and share with them, and of course, Mr. Castillo, I commend him for taking time after hours to meet with the residents. And we were able to get a bigger picture of what their concerns were, and we were able to, explain to them why certain things couldn't happen because of ordinances and limitations and whatnot. But at the same time, we were able to, identify some of the smaller issues that we have that could be addressed to help resolve some of the concerns they had for their neighborhood. So I know one of the things I heard you ask Parish President is, what could we do insofar as guaranteeing or confirming with the residents that the trees are not impeding or impeding, the waterway? So maybe even doing a community meeting with that neighborhood, because some of the residents may be able to afford moving out the trees if they understand and know what it is in those explanations. So that's just something to consider, doing a meeting with the residents. That worked well for me with Brookwood. I did one with Red Vision. I did one with, Duchamp and Dujaquette in those areas. And so the residents, even though we couldn't do a lot of things, were very appreciative of us taking the time from a parish perspective and educating them with that. So that may be something Mr. Duckham could participate in, and get a little bit insight from the residents.
Good, thank you.
See, then,
That's it. There you go.
District 4. District 5, I'm good. District 6. Nothing? Oh, you're not here, okay. District 7.
Yes. Mr. Duffin, excuse me, you did a good job explaining the question I was gonna ask you on item 3. And so, I just got one little question to ask you, but you did it, like I said before, you did a good job. Now it's perfect. It's very clear exactly what's going on now. But the project is called Ulysses Drive Project, but it's actually gonna be the drainage canal in the back of Ulysses I'm gonna be working on.
Yes, ma'am, yes, sir,
That's what,
yes, sir,
That's
that's
it.
exactly.
yeah. But you did a good job
The
explaining.
Road Bridge refers to that DLE Drive project.
Now, you know, now I got it
Continuity,
clear. It's not actually Ulysses,
No,
it's the where Ulysses did in the drainage canal back of Ulysses.
correct, yes, sir.
That's it. That's all I need to know.
District 8. I'm good. Nothing? Sure. District 9.
I'm so good.
Completed constituents of order for request forms for June 2025 were submitted.
This meeting is adjourned. St. Martin Parish Council Administrative Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025 at 5:43 is now called to order.
Kelly Stone to discuss concerns with the enforcement of the animal control ordinance.
Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. I'm actually coming here just to ask for some support. I do not work in the animal field, I actually work in healthcare. Animal-related issues are extremely important to me, I spend a lot of time across multiple parishes. I'm sure you guys are aware that across the state of Louisiana, we have seen a really large increase in overpopulation, animal cruelty and neglect situations, and really just a lack of follow-through in ordinances. Just in the last year, I sent you two situations that I had filed a complaint with St. Martin Parish Homeless Brokerage in reference to two separate residences with some animals not being taken care of. The first was in the sub-below zero temperatures. We had 5 to 7 pit bulls that were on our property. They didn't have proper shelter, they didn't have proper water. They were on very short, heavy chains, didn't appear that they had seen a vet, they were pretty thin. They also, the neighbors had also, filed some complaints several times prior to this with concern that some of those dogs prior had died on the property due to heat, not being tended to, not provided, just basic necessities. I called, the department, spoke with a couple of police officers there, spoke with the ACO, it was Brian Terry, I believe. He had went out several times before. On all occasion, he deemed the situation suitable. When I spoke with him in reference to this particular situation, I did recite the ordinances to him, that all dogs are supposed to have proper shelter. If they're tethered, it's supposed to be 3 to 5 times the length of the life. Also, of course, it can't be heavy towing chains. They need to have proper food and water. And also, of course, if you go out to check on these animals, you need to make sure that their license is up to date. None of which, to my knowledge, was ever done. He did express to me the concern that it was more or less a neighboring issue, that it had been a battle between the neighbors. One neighbor having a problem with the other neighbor, and it wasn't really a dog issue. I was provided with pictures. The food and water there was some buckets with no food in it. Of course, you could say maybe the dog ate that day, but most of them were very thin. The shelter that were provided for each one were not adequate. They were either dog houses that were broken, the roofs were open. One was a pet carrier that you would use to take your dog to the vet, and another one was a wire crate that had a tarp thrown over it only after citizens of the community went to the house with approval from the police to provide them some hay and some covering to kind of stay safe with the temperatures. To my knowledge, that was never resolved. It was just kind of decided that that was suitable. When I spoke with him, with Officer Terrio about the ordinances, his question to me was, what was I reading? I sent him a screenshot of the actual ordinances, and he told me he would need to speak with a supervisor that I was incorrect. The second issue was just a few months ago. The temperature was near 100 degrees. There was a dog that was chained on a very short towing chain. His only protection from the weather was just the awning off the side of a mobile home. There was no apparent food or water, and he was exceptionally thin. The problem with people in the neighborhood were expressing, I don't know if he's alive or not, they couldn't even tell if he was breathing. So I called and I asked for a welfare check. First officer went out, they said that everything was fine. A couple days later, I called again, the second officer went out and said, well, I do see that there's some problems. I told him he needs to feed the dog, they need to fix the chain, they need to provide shelter. No citations were given, no follow-up was discussed. I don't believe in either situation any discussion was made as far as were the dogs updated on vet care, was there any license? And then a third officer went out. Well, by that time, the owners had removed the dog. I guess they figured we were gonna aggravate them until something was done, so the dog was relocated. So ultimately, one of my goals is to change ordinances in every parish in the state of Louisiana. I know that's a huge ask, right? That's ultimately what my goal is. But if we're having a problem with just enforcing the outdated ordinances that we have, we will never make a big difference. This is the way it's gonna stay. And so what I'm asking is, it is in black and white, what our requirements are for our animals. You don't have to have an animal, it is not a law to have an animal, but we do provide in black and white what your requirements are to have one. And I understand that that's not important to a lot of people, but it is to the animal and it is to a lot of us. And I am just asking, and I will do whatever I can on my part, but I'm asking for support to start somewhere, to provide, to make sure that this is fair to you, that this isn't, dropped all the time.
I can, just a few comments. I think most of the council member, y'all did receive a copy of the ordinance for the animal control. One good thing you got going for you, the guy that wrote the ordinance was actually the attorney here, actually became our parish president, actually moved on to be the sheriff's attorney now. So he knows the ordinance. I compared our ordinance to Lafayette, Liberia, surrounding parishes. Our ordinance is a lot stricter and stronger than our neighboring parishes. If people read that ordinance and followed that ordinance like it was, 80% of the people that have animals, dogs and cats, would not have dogs and cats somewhere else. I did reach out to the sheriff and asked him if he wanted to send someone here. He had somebody that was supposed to be coming tonight to answer some of your questions and concerns. The guy couldn't make it, he's out of town for some reason. But the sheriff did express a concern for me to get with you and for the council, that he would really like to sit down and have a meeting with you and discuss some of the issues. On the enforcement part of it, we can write the ordinance, if you can approve it, we can do it. We can't enforce the ordinance. The ordinance has to be enforced by the sheriff's office. But the sheriff is willing to sit with you and speak with you and see if there's something that can be resolved. I looked at the ordinance and compared it to other ordinances. I don't see where we have a flaw in our ordinance. Our ordinance is real strict, really, really strict. Almost to the point where it's almost too strict at some point, but I understand where you come from. Look, we raise animals, we have a farm, my kids show livestock, the grandkids show, we have horses, we have, and I understand where you're coming from. And we've had some situations, I think, just about everybody that sits on this council probably at some point in time, and I've sat on this council before, have all dealt with animal cruelty and neglect on animals. I put it as neglect on animals and stuff, and we all see that, what's going on. It's not something that's not visible, it's very visible. And at some point in time, it does become a concern at some points. I think in the freezing temperatures, our ordinance says that at that point, when it gets to a certain temperature, you gotta bring those animals into a shelter, and you gotta have adequate amount of room for them to walk around, exercise, and move and all. So I don't see where we could better our ordinance. That's why I wanted to come to kind of, if you had any ideas of what we could do, or what could be done to better the ordinance, I think our ordinance is really strong. On the enforcement, I do agree with you on some of the enforcement part, but Sheriff Rule has expressed concern to me and told me that he is willing to meet with you and sit with you and see if there's something that we can work on and come up with a solution to some of these questions that you have and some of these. I mean, there's a lot of neglect going on. Some of this needs to be addressed.
Let me correct myself as well. Y'all's ordinances are great.
Yeah.
When I say adopt, I mean, there's actually one ordinance we would really like to put in place across Louisiana, and it's probably pretty difficult, but we would like to have a spay neuter required ordinance. And I understand that in Louisiana, it's not really highly regarded, but, that would be my only suggestion, just because if we could stop some of the overpopulation and hopefully stop some of the neglect.
And I agree, if you visit our animal shelter over here, I'm sure Mr. Dillon can tell you from what we fund that in the rest of this council, and the fund that we have to use to pay for that animal shelter, I wish we could see it in you, everyone that comes out of there.
Oh, I know.
And because a lot of times it's just repeat customers that we get the same animals coming in, and at some point in time, it's, we don't wanna put animals to sleep, but at some point in time, there's nothing else you can do with them, and it's just overpopulation, but I agree with you on that part. Mr. Louis, you have a question?
I just wanted to thank her for coming, to talk to us, and when Mr. Tozan sent the orders, my county, it was very well written, I thought. However, it's not always followed and done, but if we can get some free press while he's in here to make people know of the orders, it would help get the ball rolling, I think. So, thank you for coming, and I think we'll do our part to try to get it
Thank you.
better.
Thank
So
you.
if you leave tonight, before you leave, if you want, or if you wanna just contact the sheriff's office and, actually talk to Sheriff Group, when you call the sheriff's office, ask for Sandy, that's his secretary, and she'll set up a time for you to be able to go and visit with him if you have some concern you can express.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Alexander?
That's the exit one thing, sir. Okay, what you got right here is saying, concerned with enforcement of animal control ordinance. But my question is, does it pertain to dogs that disturb the peace, walking all night, all day, all night?
Do I think that should be enforced? Absolutely.
Yeah, but can you add that to the ordinance? I don't think we have an ordinance here.
It's in the.
No,
it's in
do
the-
we have an ordinance?
Yeah, it's in the ordinance.
Well, I was told that there was no ordinance in districts. They may put, got her house for sale right now because she can't sleep at night. It's a junkyard and nothing but dogs in the junkyard. It's in
That's another issue.
it's your district? Okay, well, you know what I'm talking about now. And,
Addressed. That's been addressed.
it's been addressed because she got a sign from, they got that sign from, the house for sale.
It's addressing on nuisance nuisance.
This is,
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Augustine, William Augustine. I'm not, it's not my district, but they call me all the time, so then, I have to call somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Call Mr. Ben.
Huh?
Call Mr. Ben.
So, but you saw the sign of the notice, Ms. Brazil, well, pass it tomorrow, she got it, but she said, she got sleep at night. And you consider that in your honest, when it's okay, we already have one, they tell me we do have one.
We do. It's in the noise ordinance.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion of ordinance number 15120, an ordinance allowing Parish President P. Delco to enter into a right-of-way use agreement with Optimum that allows Optimum to operate in the public rights of way in favor of and in possession of the St. Martin Parish government for the purpose of providing telecommunication services and other services in St. Martin Parish, along with other matters pertaining thereto.
Mr. Dillon, you have comments on it?
Yeah, Optimum, a couple of months back, approached me in regards to this. They wanted to run a trunk line from Iberia Parish, in which they already are in residence, down Highway 182, and then down Highway 92 into St. Martinville. Basically a trunk line to be able to service the municipality of St. Martinville. Had they come in and just asked for the right to come into St. Martin Parish and to get servitude right to be able to use that servitude, it would not have been a problem. This is not a problem, but they requested a right-of-way which needs council approval. Again, they are looking to above ground come in with a trunk line from Iberia Parish into the city of St. Martinville. So that's the request.
What road?
Come down 182 and then come down King Highway into the city of St. Martinville.
Ms. Jean-Baptiste?
Yeah, Mr. Delcott, I remember them coming in, and my concern with Optimum was just in the presentation. I know initially they talked about offering services, and then when we had a meeting, it became a truck line, and then the potential ordinance is also asking for, underground installment as well. And so I'm kind of confused about what's actually gonna be occurring. So is it really just gonna be a truck line, or is it gonna be for potential of regular services?
I would assume that, with, capitalistic view, they would want to come in and service as many people as possible. But at this point in time, they said that their only, request was to come down 182, down Highway 92 into the city of St. Martinville. And they would not be branching off at this point in time.
In our meeting that we had, I know we had talked about possibly following up, with them, with an option to come from New Iberia, coming down 31, to be able to offer additional services to those individual residents, instead of having double and triple services just primarily in the Cape area. Did we get any information? 'Cause I know he said that they already did their plans, and I advised him that that was premature to think that this was a guarantee without looking at what was beneficial for us as a parish,
Well,
specifically as a district.
yeah, I mean, they did not waver off of what I'm going to assume was their initial desire to come into St. Martinville. St. Martinville was the entity or the area in which they wanted to bring these services. And they did talk about, well, we can see about this and possibly Lady of the Lake and at the final meeting, he said, no, it would be to come in to St. Martinville proper and to service St. Martinville with the services. This is what they're requesting.
Okay, so I do understand about, capitalism and, having competition and whatnot, but I'm gonna just be blunt. I'm not interested in District Two, having optimum run through there, specifically because of the money that we've invested from our ARPA funds with Cajun Broadband to render those services. And as you know, with another provider, they've caused disruption, it interrupted services, it interfered with service that's currently being provided to the residents. Because of the inconsistent of communication about what's gonna actually happen, rendering service, trunk line, now we need overhead and underground for potential future use. There's not enough consistency for me and clarity about what's actually gonna happen. So as a representative for that district, I'm gonna let you know that I'm not supportive of that. I just feel that more services, and it would be better for the residents of the parish, for them to come down 31 and be able to offer services there instead of overlapping. I know for a business, this may be better for them to come through the business side and maybe tap into those funding there. But the businesses already have services. We need to continue to look at the rural areas and try to see for services for those constituents. And that's just my position on that.
Totally understand. However, the position that I have to take is, I service the entire parish. And this is their decision, and this is the route that they want to take to come into St. Martinville, which I feel I'm not, and again, and I know comments have been made, in the event that we have a viable business that is licensed, insured, and has the ability to do work in St. Martin Parish, I don't think it's viable unless there is a consistent or a viable reason for us to decline their ability to come into St. Martin Parish and do business.
Well, the reason would be not being truthful about what their intent is. And so if I can get some definitive answer and they be truthful with me, then I would gladly sit down. But there's been too many changes in what's being presented. So honesty is the number one for me. So if I can get some honest answer about what the intent is and what direction they're going, then I consider that. But right now, I don't have honesty and clarity with that. And I understand it's a viable business, but, and that would represent the parish. But my lines come into San Juanville too, so I'm not trying to deny the municipality of San Juanville to have services. I just would like more residents to have services instead of overlapping and overkilling just in one area. And that's just, my perspective on that.
Ms. Narcisse?
I just wanted to be reminded, Optimum is the private funded company that came.
Just a question, now, so what they're asking for is they're asking for us to agree to allow them to use our servitude, underground servitude? And the reason I'm asking this, it was my understanding that if they go overhead onto the poles, that they don't have to have our permission, is that true?
They said that, and again, they come in and just ask for right of servitude. That would just be either we give them a letter of no objection, of which they can come in and do business.
Right.
They are asking for a right of way, so therefore the right of way needs council approval.
Because my understanding, if it's overhead, it's on the poles, that's simple, with the electric company's poles, we don't have no, we've never done anything with them, when somebody came, right speed or whatever, ran lines on those poles, that was done, dealt with the people that own the poles, not through us. That was just one.
They requested a right of way.
Well, and that's my concern, the presentation that was presented was for utility poles, and now the resolution that the ordinance that we're asking for
For servitude, which
is
means
for
nothing.
servitude, right?
All right,
It's for a right of way, which he did come in and say he wanted to put them on the poll, but at the initial meeting, he gave us the right-of-way documentation. And that's what I then gave to Mr. Durio to research, and that's what was being requested, and that's what's being presented.
You're saying at the initial meeting, so I'm confused. I know he did a presentation here and then we had a meeting, so,
The meeting, yes, ma'am.
so after the meeting, he gave documentations for the
I
right
believe the
of way?
right-of-way documentation was handed at that meeting.
No, but in the meeting, he was still talking about use of the utility poles, because he identified Slimco, gave them permission, and I shared with him that it's not just Slimco in the area, that Entergy comes up, the highway, and so there was no communication that he identified with Energy at that point in time. And then he presented that it was just gonna be a trunk box to have the services to get through to St. Martinville. And so now is, we need to go underground as well. So I was just kind of concerned when you say the initial meeting, when did those documents come, because that wasn't presented in that meeting.
It's a right-of-way use agreement, so they're asking formal permission, and I felt it was a council decision, because they're moving onto interest that we have in immovable property, we don't own it, it's our servitude, so we have an interest in it, and of course, our home rule charter, that's the council's decision. They made the request, they handed us the servitude agreement, and we're giving it to y'all to decide whether they come in. So it's a right-of-way use agreement, they're asking for formal permission from the council to work in the servitude, run lines, if it's on the pole, that's for them to go get the proper permits, Slimco Energy, wherever that may be. If they wanna work in our servitude or run underground, that's why it's council, because this is an interest in our immovable property. And they made the request, and I was my vice president's council decision, put it in front of the council, we can't just ignore the request, so a decision has to be made at some point.
So for Ms. Jean-Baptiste clarification, why don't you, before the next meeting, can we have a meeting with these people? Why would you just do
I'm
it?
not interested in another meeting, because I had a meeting, and then directives or suggestions was made that they would follow up, Mr. Duncan would follow up with them to get some clarification. And so if this is what's being presented to me, then my position is this is what they're requesting, so they weren't interested in other alternatives. So if they are, then I would strongly encourage them to reach out to Mr. Duncan so he could present that, or vice versa. But I'm not doing any additional work.
Just a suggestion. Mr. Corbett,
I just wanted to ask Mr. Durio, I hit the button while he was talking. So the right-of-way servitude that we're calling it, obviously be temporary, right? When then when the work that expires, and they only servitude to the end of time, right?
Correct, it's during the duration of their work.
Okay.
They provided a draft servitude, we marked it up, we're going back and forth in those terms, but it's for the work they're doing during the duration, there is an endpoint, I can't remember,
Okay.
but there is an endpoint.
so it could be overhead work, they just want to use the servitude to work in.
Correct, and it may be underground, because it does allow for underground work too.
Yeah.
They did initially say it would be overhead, because they would get the proper permits with Slimco, or whoever it may be, but there may be some areas where it has to go under.
But once they have right-of-way, technically they can do whatever they want, regardless of what they said up front.
But it's right of use, so if they're gonna be underground, they still have to comply with everything in place, whether it be permitting, 911 dig, I don't remember what it's called, but they still have to comply with that, that's their responsibility. It's just like when AT&T works on the servitude, and we allow them, you have a whole harness in place, you gotta get the proper permitting, proper regulations, all that.
Mr. Alexander,
Mr. Durio, are they gonna, utilize towers?
I'm not sure, there wouldn't be a tower in our servitude, anything outside of our servitude, that's on them and their landowners, that's, whoever owns it to decide.
You don't know
I
yet?
didn't get
Have you
clarification.
found out though?
I certainly have a contact and we could call, but if it's not in our servitude and we don't own the property, that's within the thing with the homeowners.
That's a lucky grab at all.
Alright.
Parish President Pete Delco to discuss the request of the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office to install a camera on West Mills Avenue, Museum Highway 94.
Mr. Delton,
I was contacted by, St. Martin Parish Sheriff Department, and given a number, he had conversation with Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Department to locate a camera, to give you, an idea of location, is basically across from the Sammy Broussard Kubota place on 94 going into Lafayette Parish. To be able to identify vehicles leaving St. Martin Parish into Lafayette Parish, of which they said they would incur all costs involved, which would, as he described, behoove both Lafayette Parish and St. Martin Parish. Again, I was approached and called initially by the St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Department, and given this individual's name with Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Department, and I am bringing to you the request of putting a camera in St. Martin Parish at the parish line to pick up vehicles going into Lafayette Parish.
Any questions? So the sheriff was notified, so he knew this came from St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Office.
I would assume, I do not know the workings of the St. Martin Sheriff's Department. The phone call was from St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Department from an officer. And he had conversation with Lafayette Parish, et cetera, he gave me the name to the individual. I assumed that everything was in compliance and agreed upon with St. Martin Parish. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, because I know like the sheriff's got probably about, maybe 160, 170 cameras throughout the parish right now, and I know there's quite a few of them, there's cameras right there on that thing. I'm just wondering why they want to pull, because I think they had 14, 15 cameras down 94 right now. So I was just wondering if the sheriff had been
I did
aware.
not talk to the sheriff individually. I was contacted by a sheriff's deputy, and that's, again, I am moving forward with and bringing the request as assumption of agreement by St. Martin Parish and by the verbalization of request by Lafayette Parish.
Okay.
And just clarity, the file that I got to put before y'all is the relocation of the camera. So they have a camera at the bridge the temporary bridge that's being built on the parish line, putting the new one in. It's a camera that had to be removed from that area, and I think they asked to put it down there by the old Anthony's tax service.
The temporary.
I think
They would like to make it,
Yeah.
they saw no reason that it would need to be moved back. But in the event that the sheriff or you have problems with it, I'm sure that could be arranged.
because it will be on an intergovernmental agreement, because we're cooperating.
They would
with another
need to,
agency.
now, I don't know whether this is via satellite or hardwired or whatever, in the movement of the camera from one side to the other, it was due to the construction of that bridge. And that's, I'm bringing it to you for initiation.
Ms. Jean-Baptiste?
I just think we may need to communicate and confirm with the sheriff. I mean, we don't wanna have any,
Yeah, well, that was my question, but Mr. Kelvin clearly said they came from St. Martin Parish Sheriff's
It
Office.
was initiated by St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Department.
all right.
So,
And if the sheriff, of course, if the sheriff is questioning it at this time, and actually the sheriff did call me today and I have not been able to return his call, it may have been in reference to that. But again, I was under the assumption that the initial call was from St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Department.
okay.
Parish President Pete Felton to discuss amendment number 3 to the inmate healthcare services agreement between St. Martin Parish Government and St. Martin Hospital Incorporated.
This is just the service agreement with the hospital. Nothing, basically, this was done back in, I think, 19 by Mr. Chester. This is an amendment to that. And basically, the contract that was done, the original contract, said that OSHAs would have in place the ability to do services as per keyboard and computer generated and et cetera, et cetera. At this point in time, that has not occurred. They have not been able to complete or to fulfill that portion of the original contract. So what they wanted to do was, as it has not been completed, they anticipate continuing and to complete it at some point in time, but as per a contract, they would have preferred deleting that area of the contract until the next renewal date. Hopefully at that point in time, it would be in place and it can be put back into the contract. So everything else in the contract that we have with Osler, with Robridge Hospital is the same, other than this deletion of a portion.
Discussion of recommendations from Lynn Vidry Architect for the expansion and renovation project.
Mr. Gator, you want to vote?
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Vidry. I'm the architect for the new annex building next door. I'm here to answer any questions you might have, but before that, let me review just a couple of things with you. We received bids at the beginning of this month on July the 2nd. The low bid was by Castle Road Construction for the base bid of $1.890 million. That works out to a price of approximately $364 per square foot. The most recent other project that I've done was well over $400 a square foot. So telling you that it was a very good bid at this time. But what's interesting too is that if you recall, we also did this very similar project back in November, and the price at that time was $60,000 less. So what changed? Well, actually, we took some things out. We weren't bidding apples to apples. We were actually bidding a little bit less this time. We took some things out of the project that we did in November, anticipating that we would have some inflation during the 8 months between the November bid and the bid at the beginning of this month. And the bid still went $60,000 higher. I attribute that to inflation because really nothing else changed. We didn't add anything. In fact, we took out some things. So inflation during that time was over $60,000. So my recommendation to you is to accept the low bid, assuming that the funds are available. The funds are approximately $60,000 over what we expected, which was what the first bid was. That's how we had established the budget for this project. So it is higher than what you currently have, as my understanding, in the budget for this particular project. The alternative would be to rebid the project. I'm gonna tell you, I think that prices are gonna go up. Inflation is hitting us hard in the construction and everything else. If you go to the grocery store, you have no doubt about that. There's three ways to, if you ask me to rebid the project, there's three ways to affect that. Quantity, quality, and time. And in this case, time doesn't really matter because we've given the contractor adequate time to do the project. They have approximately 12 months to build that building. That's not like we were asking them to build it in 3 months or 5 months or 6 months. There's adequate time. So there's two variables that I could affect if you ask me to go out and rebid the project. Quantity, we could reduce the square footage of the building, or quality. I'm really not wanting to reduce quality because you're going to get a lesser building. What would we reduce the quality of? Quality of the roof, so that the building leaks in 5 years or in a few years. I wouldn't want to reduce quality. I think we have a good building. It's not gold plated, but it's one that should last you a good long time. So it leaves us with quantity. Do we want to reduce the size of that building? And, you know, we've talked about it, there's very little in the building that we feel we could do without, or should do without. So, you know, my recommendation is to accept the low bid, if funds are available, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions from the council? Hearing none, I think we're good.
That was easy. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So it just, we will have to act on this pretty soon, so we need to know what paperwork to prepare. So if we can get some indication of that at some point, on what position the council wants to go, or we have to put both competing motions on the agenda.
Yeah, I have to put two resolutions for
If
the
not-
second one, if I don't know what we want to do.
Prepare vote, see what happens.
Councilmember Carla Jean-Baptiste to discuss the creation of the Greater St. Martinville Economic Development District.
Do you know what these?
Yes, you all received a copy, in your packet of Act number 141, which became House Bill number 107. That was presented by Representatives Bryan and Shasson. This is creating what's called the Greater St. Martin Economic Development District. And that, the purpose of this district is to, provide for cooperative economic and community development among the district, the city, the state, and owners of property in the district to enhance the development of and improvement to the property within the area of the district, to provide for cultural enrichment and preservation, to develop stable and more extensive employment opportunities, to improve infrastructure, and to promote the overall welfare of the citizens of the district. And that district primarily is within the municipality. And so with this board, there will be a 7-member board. And District 2 and 3 have been granted the luxury of representing or making a recommendation for one representative between the two districts. And so Ms. Narcisse and I will be coming to you all at the next meeting with a nomination to be considered for that seat to represent District 2 to create and inform and help develop the municipality. Ms. Narcisse, do you want to add something to that?
Councilwoman Jean-Baptiste, she stated the luxury. Y'all know we don't get no luxuries. I don't know why she used that word. But, when I received the news, I'll just elaborate. When I received, this information, I was rather excited. And, I guess somewhat flattered that, we were considered in that merge. And, we were thought of to have the representatives to see that there was a need to create some type of ordinance, to see that there's a need for economic development within our municipalities. So I ask you guys for your support when we come with a nomination, and you believe and trust that it's not gonna be, anybody that we are looking to appoint. It's gonna be somebody in that body that we know that has some strength in, economic development, that believes in the community, that believes in our parish, that's just gonna put the work in without a paycheck. So we ask that you trust us with who we bring forward to appoint, and if you have someone within those districts, 2 and 3, that you can suggest and that we can meet with prior to, then please don't hold that with and share that with us, because we really wanna have great representation on that board, because we wanna do some major things. And we need help, we need a team, so, that's it, that I have that.
Sounds good.
And read the act if you need any additional information.
Consider appointments, reappointments to various committees. Parish President's report.
Yes, as we know, we had a storm event over the last week, and just wanted to bring you up to date as to what transpired and the parish's intervention. First of all, I left town, as was reported last weekend, and for a vacation at Gulf Shores, knowing that there was a disturbance in the Atlantic, a low pressure system. So leaving on Friday, I had daily morning contacts with Mr. Terry Guidry with the St. Martin Parish Sheriff's Department. He would then give me information, updated information from the National Weather Service, both in Lake Charles and in New Orleans, giving me updates as to what was transpiring. As of Saturday and Sunday, he said really and truly until the low pressure goes across the peninsula of Florida into the Gulf or into the upper United States, we would really not know exactly what this thing was going to do. So Monday, it didn't look good. There was anticipation of it going into the Gulf and creating maybe not a hurricane, but possibly a tropical storm. They didn't know. So Tuesday morning when I called him, he said, look, he says, I think we're gonna dodge a bullet. It has crossed the peninsula, but it's staying on land, and it appears to will continue on land as a low pressure system all the way to the Louisiana and then make a loop. He said we may have to then reevaluate next week, the latter part of the week being this Thursday, Friday. We may get another low pressure with a rain event that may hit at the end of this week. As of Sunday and Monday, the possibility of rain in this area was 10 to 15 inches, which is a very large amount. With that being said, Tuesday morning when I called him, I had my vehicle packed. My wife was going to stay with the family in Gulf Shores, and I would be coming home. And this is when he gave me the information that it appears it will stay on land based and not pick up any additional moisture and or speed. I told him to call me again that afternoon if anything had changed. Basically, I was 4.5 hours away. This would be Wednesday morning, same thing occurred. He said, look, it's not going into the Gulf. The predictions is that it will be a rain event, probably no more than what a normal Louisiana rain event is in Louisiana during the summer. That being said, as of Sunday and Monday, the Public Works Department were all put on standby. We had bagged probably close to 9,000 bags with the last event that had occurred in Stevensville, which thankfully we did not have to disperse because it didn't come into the event that we had anticipated. So Stevensville had basically about 3,000 bags already staged there. They used about 1,500 bags in anticipation of anything going on in Lower St. Martin. We had 6,000 bags still here in Upper St. Martin, and we dispersed about 2,700 bags of sand to individuals that were coming in volunteering to pick up. So that being said, also with Terry Guidry and the Sheriff's Department, as of Sunday, I had talked to Terry, and we had, working with the Sheriff's Department, the sheriff would take care of the Cecilia High School Road in the event that something needed to be done if there was a major rainfall with complications. They had barricades staged excuse me, at the Cecilia High School in case that would occur. My Public Works Department had staged area barricades around the parish in the event of need, the new pump that we had, the 6-inch pump we had purchased, we had brought to Bridgetown and staged there. Thankfully, it did not turn into anything more than just a rain event, as had been predicted once it made and stayed within the confines of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and then to Louisiana. So, that being said, I think we did dodge a bullet. I think I commend the Public Works Department for their diligence, being on standby, and for being able to, now we will, as we have used approximately 5,000 bags of sand, we will be, and with hurricane season pending, we will be refurbishing our supply. And in the event of need, we do have an ample supply of sandbags on hand. We will also have sand and bags available in the event people would want to come and utilize that. So that being said, that was St. Martin Parish's participation in this last event. We are in the process of, with our road projects, the last indication that I've gotten, they had completed millage on Herman Dupuy Road and were beginning or have begun the asphalting of same tomorrow. So Herman Dupuy is all milled, all prepped, and they're going to start. What's the
We're looking at 4 to 5 days, weather permitting, all asphalt will be laid on.
So that project, I know there was some anxious for when this thing was initiated. The contractor had ample time to do everything needed to take care of the project. They needed to stage all material at one time. This was the reason that it was quote unquote delayed for 3 weeks. But once they got onto the project, as we see, they were able to mill, and in preparation of asphalting, this will take place in a very short period of time. And we'll finish that project. We will then move on to the other road projects that y'all are all aware of, in different districts. We will be starting those in the very near future when all of that engineering has been completed. And that would be about it on my president's report. Any questions from anyone?
Questions, Mr. Porter?
And might be a question for Mr. Castillo, do we kind of have a list, or can you send us a list of what order we're gonna go in when we start doing the roads?
I was gonna ask you something for you, kind of hard to hear right now.
No?
On the road project, once it gets there, once we have a pre-construction meeting, we kind of go through it and prioritize. Until we actually get everything lined up, it's not even worth prioritizing it until we get with the contractor. We're gonna do a line off on mobilization, try to get a bunch of roads in that area, and then move forward from there.
We're gonna have like, we got an idea about a starting point and what timeline, and when we thinking about doing
Still under construction, still in the engineering, waiting on all the geotechnical reports that come back in, should be finishing that within the month, and then they can finish their.
Before the end of the year, we should be.
Before the engineers, at the end of the year.
So, Jason, the one thing I'd ask is that we kind of look at some of these roads as they come in with the effects of grinding going on.
Yes.
I know I had, the reason I asked, I got a road in my district that has a lot of sugar cane on it. We kind of wanted to do during grinding and all.
Well, we could do like we did them last year with Domino's Song Extension.
Kind of just carry that.
Kind of carry that over to the later part, when grinding is over, because of that reason.
Right.
There's probably a very good possibility that this project's gonna roll into early next year then.
Oh, it will.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's 18, we have, 18 roads on this project?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Good.
Reports, statements of revenues and expenditures and balance sheet for June 2025 were submitted.
Everyone should have had that in their email. Meeting adjourned.